Chewin on fire.
Well, are you ready to move on to the
Oh yeah, like that I can't even feel the other two.
I still feel the burn up
Oh,
here.
really?
I feel it rising. We're 2 nuggets in, and I'm nervous. So, all right, well, let's take a crack at this one. This is that banana pepper one. This one, I have no idea how hot it is.
I can't even smell it.
I couldn't find a Scoville level for it. So, good luck. I don't know. It's the weakest one I think so far.
Nothing.
I think the one from the Golden Arches was hotter.
Okay. Yeah, move
Well,
on.
that was easy.
Now
All right.
I'm confident now.
Yeah.
We're on the third one, and I'm
All right. So, next question is about racism. So there's been a lot of talk and a lot of news, and man, the most recent thing that kind of brought things to light was discovering the mass graves in those residential schools.
Yeah.
But man, in the last probably 2 years, it feels like things have really come to a head with the Black Lives Matter protests.
Yeah.
You can't not be talking about that at some level. And so this is kind of how the question reads. So there's been a lot of talk in the news about racism. I'm not sure what to do about that because I don't see it that way. I don't see the issues that the news is talking about. So, in light of that, what does Jesus want me to do about racism when it seems like it's an issue that is far away from us? It happens it happens in the States, but we don't really have that here. So what am I supposed to do as somebody who wants to follow Jesus and honor Jesus with my life? How do I handle this issue?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. And maybe some of it is just the circles or where this person is at hasn't experienced what the level of, and I think in Canada it is a little bit different than in the States. However, the the devastation from racism in Canada with First Nations people is huge, and it's good, and I'm glad that that's not maybe something that's coming into play with this person who asked the question, but maybe the reality is so what do I do with it in light of I'm not seeing it and it seems far removed, and I get that, and so but I think part of it is to continue to be aware of what is happening and what can happen, what are the dangers and that are going on around the world, or even that are close to us. And sometimes it has to do with education too, and getting to know somebody of another that's come from another place that speaks a different language. Getting to know somebody like that, will help you to understand it a little bit more. I think there's a couple of things that have really played into me understanding the devastation and of what the residential schools even brought about. And one of them is I had a coworker when I worked at a place, a coworker, and his dad actually went through the residential schools, and he was okay with asking me a ton of questions. And so I asked a ton of questions, and my heart, every time I asked a question and heard the answer, it broke, over and over again. And then when Norm McCallum started coming to our church and became a member, and he actually had a couple of classes where he talked a little bit about what they went through. And so sometimes being educated and knowing is important, because then we don't downplay. If we know somebody that comes from a different country, speaks a different language, those things, then we don't downplay kind of how they've been treated, how they've felt in light of how they've been treated throughout society. So education might be a really good thing. Get to know some people, and you can't just ask people, like, so do you experience racism?
on the
That's not
street.
what,
Yeah,
you have
Don't
to
do
get to
that.
know them to get to a place where,
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, so how you come from a different country, and I have lots of conversations with people, and I ask them, what's their experience like, and how are you fitting in? And so you ask questions that are maybe appropriated to direct in people into a certain conversation, so that you can find a place where, this has been hard for me. This is what it is, and I think that's important to be able to educate ourselves, because it is happening around us. Very in Osler, in Warman, where in our surrounding area, very much some of these things happen, and especially when you look at now in Kelowna, where this travesty of these graves have been unveiled, and every residential school has a cemetery. Now there's bound to be a lot of people buried there, obviously, and that's devastating, and so it is good, and I didn't realize that. I had no idea that these residential schools had cemeteries at them.
Yeah.
Like, it's devastating to think, and some of the I've heard some horror stories already of some of the people, what they saw as they were attending those schools, and so so educating ourselves is huge, so that we're not ignorant of what people may go through. And just even comments, what are some comments that I make that I don't think should hurt any type of background of culture or person or nationality, but in fact they are. And so, I mean, we had a conversation not that long ago with a couple of pastors, and we're talking about, so what does racism look like for you on an everyday basis? We asked a gentleman, and he told us, and there, we would never think that in a conversation that it would come up, but it does, and people are guilty of it. Even, okay, if somebody is not driving well, who do we assume it is? There is an assumption that's being made of where that person originated based on if they made a mistake driving. That's racism. Right. And so it is out there, and I'm glad that maybe you're not seeing it, because then it tells me that maybe as parents then we're doing a better job and not exposing our children to it, to some bad or inconsiderate, and I sometimes I think it's culturally, especially in a Mennonite culture, sometimes we can be very insensitive with the words we use and choose to use, and can really, but they're really hurtful to people, because people take things differently than we do in our culture. Right. So that can play into it as well.
If I'm going to try to summarize, so talk back to me if I'm misrepresenting. It's that our call is first to get in proximity with somebody who might be different than us. So, like, if we're if we're say if we're a bunch of white people and all our friends are white people and we don't know any like native people, then who maybe came out of like a reserve or live in the inner city or like, I mean, you could take racism out of it and put homeless. Like, we don't know how we don't know how they live because we're not close to them. Like, we don't have any proximity to them. Like, those issues feel far away. Yeah. But actually, and in your answer, you said, well, there's actually issues in Osler. But I think I agree. I just think we don't know about them because we don't know those people. Yeah. We're not friends with them. So I think the first step would be, we need to be proximate. Like, we need to be close to those issues. And my dad, and the other thing that you said is we need to ask questions. Like, you said, educate yourself. And when we say educate, what you don't mean is like go to school and take a class about it. It's
no.
And all your stories were go ask someone.
Yes.
Go ask someone who's struggled through it,
Yeah.
who's lived their life.
Yeah.
Like, well, we have Norm McCullum who answered questions to us. Yeah. I remember my dad. I had tons of questions about Native ministry and Native Christianity and how it gets expressed. And my dad told me, well, go ask this guy. Because you can ask those questions because you're young. You don't need to be afraid of they know you don't know, so just go ask those questions. I think if you're young and you want to know what it's like to live as not a white person in North America, you just need to find someone who is not white and ask them, tell me about your life, and not to like showcase their story, but just you're trying to get out of your shell, out of your bubble, and just put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I was watching something on Right Now Media, and his summary of what should you do? Just care. Like, don't be apathetic. And that's good stuff.
Totally, and that applies to everything. That's
totally,
like that's what we're just simply to do. So when we're talking about whether we're talking about race, whether we're talking about sexuality, any of those things, people living outside of what we, it's about relationship. It's about knowing who they're. And it's not just about telling everybody about who. Oh, this is who I am. No, it's about who are you. Like genuine care. That's what we as believers are. We genuinely care. We genuinely want to know. Like this friend of mine that I got to know, his experiences from growing up, and he's okay with asking questions. But it took us a couple of years to get to the point where he started telling me stuff, and so then I would ask more and more. So he would go out in winter with on trap lines with his dad. Like that's foreign to me, but it's really cool and interesting. But what goes with that too? Now you understand how they do, why they do things, how they do things, and then sometimes we discriminate because they do things differently, or it's like, well, that's just weird. Well, no, it's not. It's different, but it's not weird because that's how they grew up. What we do is weird. So it is. That's really cool and it's exciting to get to know people from different cultures and backgrounds and where they grew up. It is.
Yeah.
Chewin.